Right now, you are scrolling a vintage audio listing, staring at silver faceplates and bold watt numbers, convinced you are rescuing history. You are probably about to get robbed. The vintage market is flooded with overhyped gear riding on nostalgia, not merit. Dozens of brands built amplifiers during the golden age. Only 4 are actually worth your money. Everything else is a gamble in a pretty case. By the end of this, you will know exactly which 4 to trust. Before we name a single winner, we need to talk about why most of the vintage aisle is a trap. Surviving 50 years does not automatically make something worth buying. The 1970s Power Wars produced dozens of brands. Some built genuinely incredible machines. Many others built average hardware that happened to come in a heavy silver case. And today, those average machines sell for collector prices based on nothing but age and a look that photographs well. That is not value. That is a nostalgia tax. Here is what actually kills most vintage amplifiers as a smart purchase. The capacitors inside have been drying out for decades. The transistors in some models are no longer manufactured anywhere on Earth. The brand that built it vanished, taking its service manuals, its spare parts, and every technician who understood the design with it. You are not buying a working amplifier. You are buying a restoration project with no factory support and no guarantee the parts you need even exist. And before you think the modern shelf is any safer, the game just flipped. A modern budget amplifier hides a circuit board the size of a playing card inside a heavy metal chassis, slaps a peak power number on the front that would make the golden age blush, and charges you a premium for a box that is mostly air. The tricks changed. The goal did not. Old or new, most of what is for sale is story first, engineering second. The 4 brands we are about to count down are the rare exception. These companies built amplifiers around real transformers, real heat sinks, and circuit design that holds up under actual use, not just under a flattering photo on a listing page. Everything else is just a gamble dressed up in silver. Number 4 is the brand that collectors keep overlooking while they chase flashier names, and that is exactly why it belongs on this list. Sansui. While the prestige logos were busy winning magazine covers, Sansui was quietly engineering some of the most robust amplifier circuits of the entire era. Pick up an AU series integrated amplifier or one of the big G series receivers, and the first thing you notice is the weight. Not decorative weight, transformer weight. The kind that tells you someone spent real money on the part that actually delivers power to your speakers. What makes Sansui dangerous in the best possible way is how conservatively the company rated its own hardware. A Sansui unit rated at 80 watts per channel was often loafing at that number, comfortably capable of more, running cool and clean while a rival rated at the same figure was already sweating at the edges. That headroom is not a spec sheet detail. It is the reason these amplifiers survive decades of daily use without burning themselves out. And here is the part your wallet will appreciate. Because Sansui does not carry the same collector mystique as the marquee names, the prices stay noticeably lower for comparable or sometimes superior performance. The smart money has been quietly buying Sansui for years while everyone else bids up the usual suspects. The honest downside is real, and you need to hear it. Sansui is gone. The company does not exist in any meaningful form. There is no factory support, no official parts pipeline, nothing. You are entirely dependent on the community, the specialist repair shops, and your own willingness to verify condition before you buy. But here is the watchdog lesson buried in that risk. A dead brand with great engineering is a better buy than a living brand coasting on its logo, every single time. Number 3 is the brand that treated amplifier building the way a bridge engineer treats load-bearing steel. Kenwood. If Sansui was the quiet underdog, Kenwood was the one that walked into the room and dared you to question its construction. The KA series integrated amplifiers and the flagship receivers from this era are defined by one thing above all else. They were built like they expected to be dropped off a truck and still work when they landed. Massive power supplies. Heat, sink-sized for the actual thermal load the circuit would produce, not the thermal load the marketing department wished it would produce, and a chassis that feels less like consumer electronics and more like industrial equipment that wandered into somebody's living room by accident. The reason so many Kenwood units survive today with fewer catastrophic failures than their rivals comes down to a simple engineering choice. The components inside were run well within their rated limits. Nothing was pushed to the edge just to squeeze out one more watt for the spec sheet. That conservative approach meant the capacitors lasted longer, the transistors ran cooler, and the whole machine aged the way a well-built tool ages, slowly and gracefully. Now, the critique you will hear from enthusiasts is fair and worth addressing. Kenwood's house sound leans analytical. It is precise, controlled, sometimes almost clinical compared to the warmth of its competitors. That divides listeners. If you want your amplifier to add a golden glow to everything it touches, Kenwood is not the one. But if you want to hear exactly what is on the recording, it rewards that honestly. And because Kenwood lacks the collector fever that inflates prices on the prestige names, you can still find serious hardware at reasonable money. The watchdog lesson here is one that applies to every piece of audio gear you will ever buy. Real weight from real parts is the most reliable indicator of honest power. Number 2 is the brand that won by refusing to play the game everyone else was playing: Yamaha. While every rival was locked in an arms race over who could print the biggest watt number on the faceplate, Yamaha stepped sideways and asked a completely different question. Not how loud, but how accurate. The company built its entire amplifier philosophy around something it called natural sound, and the idea was almost radical for its time. The goal was zero coloration, no added warmth, no flattering boost, no exaggeration. Just the recording itself, handed to you exactly as the engineer intended it. The CA series integrated amplifiers and the CR series receivers are where that philosophy landed in hardware. Open one up, and the internal layout is so clean, so deliberately organized, that technicians still pull these apart decades later just to study how the job was done. The tone controls were unusually sophisticated, offering real surgical precision, and Yamaha gave you something almost nobody else did: a switch to bypass them entirely, removing every unnecessary component from the signal path when you wanted nothing between you and the music. Here is the advantage that separates Yamaha from every other name on this list. The company never disappeared. Yamaha still builds audio equipment today, still operates globally, and while factory support for a 50-year-old amplifier is obviously limited, the ecosystem around these machines is far healthier than anything a dead brand can offer. The trade-off is real, though. In a quick side-by-side showroom demo, Yamaha's neutral signature can sound almost boring next to a warmer, more flattering rival. But sit with it for an evening, and that neutrality stops sounding like nothing and starts sounding like everything, because you are finally hearing the music instead of the amplifier. The brand that whispers its specs instead of screaming them is usually the one that can back them up. Number 1 is the brand that earned something almost no other name in audio has ever managed. It became the thing people point to when a guest walks into the room. Marantz. No other vintage brand carries the same combination of sound quality, build quality, visual identity, and sheer, lasting desirability. The champagne gold faceplate, the soft blue glow behind the dial, the warm but controlled tonality that makes a vocal sound like the singer is standing in your living room. Marantz did not just build amplifiers. It built objects that people develop an emotional relationship with and keep for the rest of their lives. The PM series integrated amplifiers and the legendary receiver lineup from the 2200 and 2300 era represent the peak of that philosophy. Inside, you find components selected with genuine care, power supplies that take their job seriously, and a circuit design that prioritized musicality without ever sacrificing control. A properly serviced Marantz delivers a listening experience that modern gear at 3 times the price frequently cannot touch. Now, here is where the watchdog in me has to step in front of the love letter. Marantz commands the highest premiums in the entire vintage market, and the collector tax is absolutely real. Some units change hands for prices that have drifted well past what the hardware alone can justify. You are paying for the badge, the history, and that blue glow. On top of that, the market is now full of over-restored units with questionable parts and outright counterfeits targeting buyers who shop with their eyes instead of a multimeter. So, Marantz earns the top spot, but it earns it with an asterisk. The prestige is real because the engineering behind it was real. But prestige also attracts the worst kind of sellers, the ones counting on your emotions to override your judgment. Marantz proves that a reputation can be genuinely earned. Just make sure you verify before you pay for it. Knowing the right brand is only half the fight. The other half is condition, and condition is where first-time vintage buyers lose their money. A name from this list does not protect you from a machine that has been sitting in a damp garage for 30 years with original capacitors slowly dying inside it. So here is the checklist that separates a real find from an expensive headache. First, ask about the capacitors. If the unit has not been recapped, budget for it immediately because it will need it. Dried-out capacitors are not a maybe. They are a certainty on any amplifier this old, and they are the single most common reason a vintage unit hums, distorts, or dies without warning. Second, test every single input, every output, every switch, and every knob. Twist them slowly and listen for scratchiness, crackling, or dead silence on one channel. These are not cosmetic problems. They are signs of oxidation and wear that will only get worse. Third, look inside. Inspect the transformer and the heat sinks for burn marks, corrosion, or rust. If the seller will not let you open it, that tells you everything the inspection would have. Fourth, be deeply suspicious of the words fully restored with no receipts, no photos, and no specific list of what was actually done. Restored can mean anything from a professional recap to a quick wipe with a damp cloth. And fifth, always factor the cost of a professional service into your purchase price. The number on the listing is never the real number. This is the entire reason these 4 brands earned their place. They built machines that were designed to be opened, serviced, and kept alive for decades. Modern budget amplifiers sealed shut with plastic clips and smothered in glue took that option away from you. These machines give it back, but only if you do your part before you buy. The vintage market is mostly noise. Dozens of brands trading on nostalgia and silver faceplates, hoping you buy with your eyes instead of your hands. But these 4 earned their place by building machines that still work, still sound right, and still reward anyone willing to look past the hype. Whether you are buying a 50-year-old Marantz or a brand new box off a modern shelf, the rule never changes. Judge the hardware, never the badge. The gear that lasts was built to outlast you.